Hello and welcome to the Heavy Mental Podcast, a podcast where you can expect to hear candid chatter about the things that matter, from mental health to wellness, personal growth and beyond. I'm your host, Rhys and Leila King. Let's get into it. Before we kick off with this episode, I want to share something. A few months ago, I asked you to get in touch on Instagram about what had helped you get through lockdown. And we had loads of responses, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to read through a few with you in the hope that it might help you the next time your life gets thrown a curveball. So James from Matudai Ramen says the garden, being creative, avoiding the news, which seems to be a theme among your responses, and reading. Mark J. Chesterfield, my good friend, says being creative, again that's cropped up. Vesmondo says, finding a new workout that's made exercise fun and given me a sense of control. At Gort, Gortt, says, working out for sure. I also make sure I get ready for the day, even if I don't leave the house. That seems to be a theme among the responses as well. Steph Knight says, getting dressed and wearing makeup every day. It makes me feel proactive and ready for anything. Evolution of Margot says, my dog and having periodically dancing sessions to Taylor Swift. Nice one. I am Jack Walton says, journaling my thoughts and feelings, morning yoga, FaceTimes with my friends. It's Lizzie says, setting time aside to exercise and giving myself a work schedule with lunches and little breaks. Previous guest Natalie Byrne says, coffee to get me out of bed. Spider Monkey Lou says, committing to a daily yoga practice even on the days I don't feel like it. Amy X Hill says gardening. That's one that seems to come up a few times as well. Toyo Ha. Forgive me if I'm butchering these Instagram ats, but they say getting into gardening, windowsill pots only, giving me a small daily focus that brings me joy. Joy or joy? Our friend Bailey says, yoga, CBD oil, trying to find comfort in being able to control the controllables. Again, focusing on what you can control. I love that idea. We spoke to him about it a few times on the podcast. Previous guest, Daniel James Fitness, says morning walks, routine, podcast, and Xbox. Again, I think that sense of routine has come up for a lot of people. Rebel Sobriety says, yoga, running, reading and cooking. Sobriety has been the best thing for my mental health ever. My sister, Nia King, says Grey's Anatomy. Simple as, nothing else. Nice one. Ronstagrams says daily meditation, in brackets headspace, and yoga. Yoga seems to have come up a lot as well. And on the flip side, O'Malley Cat 86 says, taking one day at a time. I love that ethos. Not putting too much pressure on myself to read a bloody book and bake, etc. and do all the things. So yeah, we discussed that one, Leila and I, previously. And I like that idea where you don't have to be, just because everyone else is doing something, you don't have to be forced into learning a new language or a new skill or anything if you're not feeling up to it. Someone who I think might have not really been in touch with the theme that I was going for here. Maybe a bot, perhaps. I'm not going to give the tag, but hi, sweetie, I'm rising webcam model. Please follow my main page. I will post there my uncensored content for you. Well, if that got you through lockdown, dropping that message, then good on you. Who is she? And I'll share one more. Lucy J. Freeman says, daily exercise and meditation. Again, that seems to have come up a lot. For me, went completely off the rails at points, but I think that sense of routine was important, as was exercise. They kind of carried me through. But thank you for all of your responses. Now, let's get on to this episode here. In this episode, I chat with Laura Jane Derney, the founder of My Discombobulated Brain, a charity that was set up to tackle the stigma associated with mental health head on. They do this by serving as an educational resource and by acting as a form of support for sufferers and those close to them. My Disc and Bob's aim is to eradicate the stigma associated with mental health by using their own personal stories and experiences, as well as those of others, to help get the conversation started and, more importantly, to keep it going. It was after losing her best friend John at 18 to suicide and then experiencing peri and postnatal depression that Laura felt compelled to share her experience in the hope that it might help others. She was challenged by her friends to speak about mental health at a local Ignite event in Cardiff, where speakers are basically allocated 5 minutes and 5 minutes only to speak about anything they want. After doing this, she soon realised that there were many women out there that had also had a similar experience to her. And this soon led to more speaking engagements, as well as consultations with businesses on how they were able to better support their staff's mental health. And soon after this, My Disc and Bob was born. I should say that this podcast was recorded earlier on this year, pre-COVID, in the bank vault at Cardiff-based Little Man Coffee Co. So shout out to Little Man Coffee and check it out if you happen to be in the city and want a nice brew. During the episode, we chat about the motivations behind Laura starting My Disc and Bob, as well as her experience with perinatal and postnatal depression. We talk parenting, teaching kids about mental health, and giving them the tools to express their emotions from a young age. We talk about leaving the corporate world to pursue freelance and the importance of being happy in the workplace. We also talk public speaking, panic attacks, and nervous breakdowns. Not only that, but also the perils of social media, the pressure of the mainstream press, and celebrities taking their own lives. In line with being discombobulated, our chat does really go all over the place, but I love having those kind of conversations where you just end up going down all sorts of different rabbit holes, and I try and let my curiosity lead me and let the conversation to just flow. Right then, that's enough from me. Please enjoy my chat with the funny and lovely Laura Jane Derney. How did My Discombobulated Brain begin?
God. Well, long story short, because, you know.
No, please. You can tell a long story.
I suffered with peri and postnatal, so during and after with both my kids. But with Jack, who was my eldest, my postnatal, I got told I was better after I had my gallbladder out because I had extreme morning sickness as well. So when my gallbladder got taken out, my doctor said, well, the reason you were depressed was because you couldn't parent, so you don't need your tablets anymore. And Hen and I, my husband, kind of then probably had the worst 2 or 3 years of our entire relationship because I was depressed, but didn't know. We also had a newborn, and you don't know what you're meant to feel. So everything that I was feeling, the anxiousness, the depression, we just assumed that was what happened when you had a baby. So then fell pregnant with Poppy, and my mother-in-law came down and made a cup of tea when I was 20 weeks pregnant. I already had extreme morning sickness, you know. I like to do things in the groups. Something can go wrong. It will. And she made a cup of tea and I freaked out. Don't even drink tea or coffee, so don't even know why I freaked out. But that's when I got re-diagnosed with peri, which is during, and then after I had Poppy, postnatal. And apparently I am now officially normal. So I was given meds. It doesn't work for some. It works for some, works for doesn't. You know, different strokes, different folks.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
And it works for me. I left my job in corporate and went freelance. And all my really comical stories start with, so I had a beer. So I had a beer and signed up to do a Cardiff Ignite talk.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember those. Are they still going?
I think so, but they don't seem as big as they were.
Yeah.
And I kind of woke up the next morning, I'd been out with friends and did it, and was like, oh God, what am I going to talk on? So I was like, I'm going to do stupid shit the kids say. And I got sat down by my friend Warren and Amy, who just went, no, you're going to talk about mental health and you're going to talk about it honestly because you've spoken to us about it. And I said, yeah, but it's different talking to you guys than a room of 300 people.
Oh,
like,
gosh.
And they were like, Laura, you've got when you talk about it with us, that's how it needs to be spoken about. And I'm like, I can't, don't be stupid. So basically they bullied me.
Yeah.
They're mean. They're not. They're lovely. And I did it. And I started off with a picture of my best friend Jonathan, who took his own life when we were 18, and started talking about the stigma of that and how I never understood it until I got sick.
Right.
And one of the things that I spoke about was how bad it had got. Now, Henry and I had always spoken that I had depression, but we never spoke about how bad it got behind those closed doors. And he said, if you're doing it, let's just do this.
Yeah.
So I spoke about how I never wanted to take my own life, but I had got to a junction and thought, if I turn left, I go home. But if I turn right, I know no one really wants to go up north, but like if I turn, as I isolate half the people listening, if I turn right, I could just keep driving and they'd be better off without me. So when people do take their own lives, like, it's a horrible thing to say, but I kind of understand it, and it's not as selfish to me as people think. So warts and all got spoken about, made Steve Dimmock cry, still one of my proud achieving moments, and Ed, which, yes. Spoke to loads of people at the end of it, and then I got a couple of emails saying, like, will you come and talk about this, and will you do this? And I was sat down with one of my friends, Matt, going, there's loads of people just asking for not necessarily help, but just to talk to people, which, like a signposting thing, and what should we do? And Matt's one of these people that is ride or die.
Right.
If I ever accidentally kill someone, I would bring in Matt Gallivan. Total name drop there. He is one of the trustees of the charity, and I've known him since we were 17. And he said to me, just do it. You should just do it. And then I came out with discombobulate's my favourite word.
It's a really nice word to say, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't say it though. You can't say my discombobulated brain about 4 times in a row because you sound like you are trolleyed. So we call it discombob for short because otherwise
I can
you sound even crazier. And we just came up with that. My favourite word because it's Stone Cold Steve Austin's favourite word.
Is it actually?
Yeah, it's how he says his brain is after being hit around the head by so many metal chairs.
Oh my God, I love Stone Cold.
He's got a great podcast as well.
Yeah, I've heard that. The Ranch, is it?
It's
BSR.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what is it?
Bone Skull Ranch?
Something like that. Yeah, Broken Skull Ranch.
Broken Skull Ranch.
So yeah, I was listening to his podcast a lot at the time. 90s girl.
Yeah.
And it just kind of made sense. And I kind of just started, it evolved from there. And so it's quite nice when we first started, are we allowed to plug where we are?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So we're in the vault of Little Man Coffee in Cardiff. And this is where we had our first big fundraiser event where my friend Kywin, who had just been on MasterChef, who's just opened a restaurant in Swansea. Everybody go visit Hexagon.
I was going to ask what the name was.
Yeah. So nice little plug.
Yeah, sure.
He owes me at least free dinner. We did a pop-up restaurant here. Yeah. So this was the first event, and so it's just kind of spiraled. Like on Friday, I'm talking to midwives. I'm here with you, which is lush. Yeah, it's very discombobulated and crazy.
So when I'm trying to put myself in the position of you had that night out and you were urged, I'll use the word urged, by your friends to do this Ignite talk. Had you been to the Ignite events before? Did you know what
I'd been once before.
Right. And
I had watched one of my friends do it and I was like, you are a brave MF. Like, that's crazy. Because the slides change, whether you're ready or not. You've got a 5-minute talk.
Oh, right, okay.
The slides change every 15 seconds. And the mic stops at 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes.
Oh, right, okay.
Also, I followed one of the most lovely but traumatic talks I've ever seen at Ignite, where this girl spoke about her, and if she's listening, it was amazing, but you traumatized me. It was about her cat and how wonderful her cat is.
Oh, I can see where this is going on already.
Yeah. And she was talking about how you should get your cats chipped and like how much her cats are her babies. And then the last picture of it was a lane, and it's where she had found her cat knocked down. And I was like, great, I'm getting up and talking about suicide and depression. Whoop, let's lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Luckily, Steve had read the room, and I looked at him and just was mouth open, exactly how you are right now, eyes wide, like, oh God. He was like, Laura, are you okay? I was like, I think we should have like a break before I talk.
Yeah.
Just you know what we're talking about.
Some comic relief in the middle.
Oh God. Luckily, Matt, ironically,
these are the organisers of...
no, Matt's the guy's the trustee who will help me bury a body. He was also talking that night, and Matt talked about all the crazy jobs he had ever done. And cool. Matt has done everything. Really? He was a wasp disposal man. He's been stung everywhere. Oh. Well, not quite everywhere, but eyeballs, everything. So my parents had a wasp nest recently, and my dad was like, text Matthew. Matt came over in like his suit, because he's like a grown-up now.
Suit, or?
No, his normal suit. And he like lobs this powder down and like angers these wasps, and then runs like hell. And there's me and my dad peering through the window at their house, going like, we're not going out there, he's crazy. And he just ran in the house. It was just, he's so funny. But no, yeah, he was speaking the same night, so he was definitely the comic relief.
Oh, right, okay. So he was before you, or?
I think Matt was just after me, which was very needed. Like, don't get me wrong, there's always a little bit of a break and a bit of a laugh when you mention that you had a nervous breakdown because your mother-in-law made a cup of tea.
Yeah.
So there's always that moment. And if I can't take the piss out of myself from my brain, who can? Yeah. So there are moments where I'll talk about the thing that really used to affect me. I think it was because I had extreme morning sickness as well. So if I got sick, on top of being sick, I was already in the hospital like once a month on a drip to make sure I was okay. But if you put your hand over my sealed drink, I couldn't drink it anymore. It was like you had poisoned it, even though it was like a sealed can.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous because only like 85% of my brain had gone, I'm going to say crazy because I can say that about myself.
Yeah, of course.
So there was still that part of my brain going, you idiot, that's not affecting the drink. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So, you get a few laughs, but you have to assure people that they're allowed to laugh.
Yeah.
Like when I talk about midwives, this is probably not great for podcast because I'm going to do some actions, but I say things like you're going to see a lot of use your imagination. And like, and then you're going to do a lot of... Yeah.
Think typical gestures that a midwife would have to
visualize. We're going to go with
job.
Crowning and hands going places that people should buy you dinner for at least. And you've got to lighten the mood because at the end of the day, everyone, this is something we were chatting about earlier, everyone's got mental health because we've all got brains. And this is all, my 10-year-old says this, everyone's got a brain, apparently. Everyone's got a brain, but not everyone has mental illness. In the same way, everyone's got heart health. We just don't all have heart disease.
Yeah.
So, yes, we can do things to like make our brains better and healthier. But if you've got an illness, sometimes those things won't necessarily work, and you will need to do extra things like medication or counselling and things like that in inverted commas normal people might not need to do. But I think I've got a very outspoken 10-year-old because he's known about it his whole life.
Yeah.
We very much lived under the banner of he's little, not stupid.
That's interesting.
So when he saw me being ill, he asked once, was it his fault I was crying? And I refused to let a 3-year-old think that the reason I was how I was his fault. Yeah. So we sat him down. We just said, my brain's a bit wonky. It's how... my brain's a bit wonky. It's just not working properly. It's not him. And ever since then, he's just this... He won't hear this, so it's okay. He's just this little superstar where he got told in school once, boys don't cry. So on a Saturday, Jack plays football all day. And on a Sunday, he does theatre school all day. And he turned around and goes, yes, we do. Watch. And he burst into tears in the front of this teacher. And I was like... I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
I probably should be telling you not to do that, but instead, go for it, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's very much like my husband tries to wind him up, be like, oh, boys, we don't have emotions like that. And he turned around and he was like, what are you, some sort of robot? So they're quite open kids, which is really good. Especially Jack actually lost one of his friends when he was 6.
Oh, wow.
He was knocked down, and it made it easier is the wrong word, but because we already spoke about how we felt, he had the skills to communicate it.
Yeah.
And so we've got a punch bag in the garage. So some days he'd be like, I'm angry, I want to go hit the punch bag. And some days he'd want to go shout. So we'd go to the top of Caerphilly Mountain. So yeah, we were those weirdos.
I think that's awesome. You know, I think that's really cool. I think too many people, young and old, don't have the tools available to them to process emotion. And I'm putting myself in this.
I'd like to say we're the same generation. I'm a little bit older than you, but I think we were talking about this before we started, weren't we? It was like we both grew up liking the same sort of music, except, you know, you were trying to live my generation. But we were just put down as angsty teenagers who liked loud music.
Yeah.
And yeah, the skills to talk, that's one of the key things that we really like to push, is giving people the skills to have that conversation, and also the skills to listen to it.
Absolutely.
Because even now, I have sat with people who have talked to me about wanting to take their own lives and things like that, but still, that is not a fun thing to sit down. And you have to be able to listen and not react with like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know, you have to sit there and listen to them and just in a non-judging. And I'm very much somebody that if my mouth doesn't say it, my face does. So it's kind of that whole thing of just being open and honest. When you say and ask someone how they are, don't accept I'm fine, and actually want to know the answer. Yeah.
I work for quite a large employer, and the changes within the business over the past few years have been monumental in terms of having all of these different things to support staff, all these things in place to be able to support people at every step of the journey, whether it's someone with a chronic mental health condition, or somebody who has experienced a bereavement, or like everyone's going to have bumps in the road, and there's so many different things in place to help people now. Yeah. Even smaller businesses are wise to that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's having companies like the one you work for lead the way, because they're actually showing other companies that it's not a waste of money, which is how it used to be seen as, it's a tick boxing exercise. And it shows that their staff are happier, they have longer retention and all that sort of stuff. It's, if the saying happy wife, happy life is true, it's the same for employees. Yeah. If the people that you employ are happy, they'll stay.
Yeah. They'll do a better job as well.
Yeah, exactly. If they care about it, if you make them feel like they're part of it, it'll be so much better.
Yeah. I read something recently where it said that generally the more unhappy people are at work is the less autonomy they have over their job. 100%. And as the more that they're included as part of decision making and, you know, how their day goes ahead, generally the happier they're going to be, because they feel they have that sense of free will, and it's more of not a collaboration, because you understand there is a hierarchy, but at the same time there's more of I'm being heard and people are listening to what I have to say kind of thing.
You're a person.
Yeah.
It's nothing worse than feeling like a cog in a machine.
Yeah.
You know, you go in, you do your stuff. We've all seen those like cartoons. You go in and you're just getting older, and it's that whole thing. I saw a quote about how if you died, they would probably replace you quicker than you were buried.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but if it makes you feel better, I'm sure your company would take a lot longer to replace you because they have a soul.
I think it's the same with any big business, is that generally the bigger the business, the more easier people are to kind of be replaced. Yeah. Because there's a procedure behind a procedure behind a procedure that is just going to pick up any slack from anyone. But I suppose it's more It's a lot more difficult if you work for a small independent, or you a freelancer like yourself, or work in...
My boss is well rough on me. My boss is me, just in case nobody picked that up.
Yeah, it's how important for you is it to do meaningful work?
So much. I just, if I don't like what I'm doing anymore, I've got to have that balance. So I know I'm really rubbish at work-life balance.
Right.
Even though I'm self-employed.
Yeah.
Where I will happily work in the evening, and if the kids are watching TV, I'll happily work there. And the other day I realised that my little girl was pretending to be on the phone. And she was like, no, I've got to go finish my work now. And I was like, So I've made sure now that there are certain evenings where I don't do stuff when they're around. But I worked for a company that's lovely, and it was the little things like, I want to go see my kids' plays. I want to go, and if they've got an open morning where Jack randomly had one where they dressed up as World War II people. That's very cool. Weird. He dressed up as my great uncle, so his great great uncle, and it was funny because Jack's quite short, and Uncle Bobby's nickname was Tiny because he was 6'5" and built like a brick outhouse. And Jack didn't quite get that it was irony. So he dressed up as Uncle Bobby but looked very funny. But I don't want to be asking someone, can I go to do this? Or then be rushing from it to go back because I feel guilty. Because once there was a situation where I nearly missed a school play because somebody had booked leave to go shopping. And I was like, well, I think I actually said, then I'm going to be sick next Thursday. And they were like, well, how do you know? I was like, because it's my son's play. Yeah. Just, I've got to like the people that I work with now. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. So, you're all right. He's lovely. So, we chatted for about 45 minutes before we even turned the mics on.
Easy, yeah.
And this is a nice, happy, productive day. I was saying that I haven't been very well, so I got to relax a little bit this morning. And tomorrow I'm working at a client's from like 9 a.m. until, whenever I leave. And it's that nice balance. I have different work that I do. Yeah. So my brain gets very distracted, hence discombobulated.
Yeah.
So having the different aspects of work to do really keeps it going and keeps it a lot healthier, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose because it's so varied as well, and you are the one that has all of the autonomy over what clients you take on, or what you're going to do on X day, and what you need to do, and your own working hours, and like you said about the work-life balance thing.
Don't get me wrong. I would be earning, let's talk about money. I'd be earning a lot more if I stayed in corporate. But today I'm picking up Poppy and I'm going to take her to a swimming lesson. And I'm going to watch her swim and not be like, on the phone. Tomorrow, I'm going to pick up Jack from after school football and then take them both to their theatre school practice. On a Friday, Friday afternoon is mum time, so I pick them up from school and we just do something stupid, like go to the field in the rain or something, like straight after school. And on a Monday, there's gymnastics. So I get to take them now to all the after school stuff that I wouldn't be able to do. And like my parents are 69 and, let's just say 70. And in fact, it's my mum's birthday today. Yay. She's 67 today, so they're not getting any younger, and they look after my kids. They're amazing. They do the school run in the morning and the afternoon, because they were like, when you went self-employed, let's just keep the same routine as when you worked in corporate, except I don't have to drop the kids to them at 6:45 in the morning. And that's lush, but also being able to alleviate them. And like they go for away. So my mum's got some, I should really know, but some autoimmune disease. And it's worse in the cold. So we've got family in the States. They go out to Florida for a month in like October, November time every year. And that's when, if my mum's meds need any changing, they do it because she's going to be in the warm. And it means that they get a really good break. Like, they've done all this. Like, they raised me.
Yeah.
They do. Sorry. They, you know, they've done their parenting. They don't need to do this. And they're doing it because they're nice.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to not panic when they go away for like a month and suddenly like, oh God, I've got to do the school run in the morning and the afternoon. And Hen will do it. Like, he's great. He's great. He probably won't listen to this, so I can sing his praises a little bit. But he works for a big charity as their like communications manager. So he's super busy, and he will, you know, he does the pickup sometimes, so that like if I'm with a client or something. But it's nice to not have that panic of who's doing what. And all my clients are lovely. You've got to be lovely. It's part of the criteria now. Are you nice? Could I go for a drink with you? If it's a no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
But most of my clients I think I went for a drink with in the last year, which
That's cool.
Which is quite nice.
Yeah. I was going to ask, actually. I think it's quite important. I know we've gone on like a progression through the chat and stuff, but wanted to touch back on the peri and postnatal depression.
Yes.
So you did the Ignite talk, and did you do any preparation in terms of public speaking or breathing or anything like that would
I've always been a bit of a gobby,
okay.
a gobby girl.
Yeah.
I practiced it lots, but one of the things, so I grew up in the church,
Right.
which with my taste of music was interesting.
Jarring.
Yeah. There was once a church meeting in my parents' living room, and I had on Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
And my dad said all he heard was do do do. And he said he could hear it getting louder, and all that went through his head is pause it, or turn it down before it started its nice little rant. And apparently they had done, like, something had happened, and I just kept turning it louder. And he said he still talks about it, where he was just sat there and somebody's talking about like this treasurer speech, and he's going,
fuck you.
fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And they were like, is that Laura? And he was like, no, it's the next door neighbours. Just dead man. They live in a completely detached house with like a good few meters between the people and like a fence and it was genius. Credit my dad has thank God my dad has a sense of humour. But so I'd done a lot of speaking through that, but my dad always remembered a story of someone that he knows who every time that they did a presentation, they went to Oxford. And they went to Oxford like when our parents were young, so when it was like really like uni was a bit of a didn't really happen to most people.
Super prestigious thing to be able to.
They every time they said or which I've just done, their lecturer would throw something at them when they were talking. Yeah, your face says it all. So my dad, every time I publicly spoke, would hand me a checklist of how many times I said or
I haven't been, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to be aware of now all of a sudden.
That's why when I say it, I don't know if you can see it, I'm like,
I didn't know. I'll notice it more now.
You'll be listening and going through edit, and you'll be like, she did it there, she did it there, she did it there.
I'll send you your
you can send me a tick list
sheet at the end.
Traumatized. But I also was a bit of a theatre kid, so, and also the lights were so bright you couldn't really see any people. The thing that made me nervous was having certain people that I knew really well there, but also having people that I'd looked up to. So there's some people, there's a group of guys who I met when I first started freelancing, who are very much, Gareth Jones in particular, shout out, Town Square. Gareth is one of the reasons I went freelance. And the day I quit my job, he still has it. There was a post-it note I put on his desk and said, I did it. And him and like a guy called Neil and Warren, they were all there. So I was like, these are people that I massively look up to, especially at the start of my freelancing career. Like, these guys are Warren in particular was younger than me, and it was just that whole thing of, I'm so impressed with where these people are, with what they're doing. Yeah. I'm kind of talking to people that I admire. And I know Neil walked in as I was just about to start with his mum. And I was like, oh, Lord, where's this going to go? And I was so nervous. And I was so nervous for the fact that I'd spoken a little bit about it, but not how bad it had really got.
Yeah.
And I was nervous for Henry, I think, as well. Henry hates public speaking.
Oh, really?
And the line of support I had before I got up, so I had Matt one side of me who just went, you're going to kill it, yeah. And I was like, yeah, you're my friend. Yeah, we're going to do this. Henry leant across and went, if this was me, I'd be really shitting it right now.
That's the polar opposite of what you want to hear. Like,
I was like, I hate you. Like, you know, we've been married 13 years, so... But it's like, I hate you. I hate you. That is not what I want to hear when they're like, Laura, come on up. I would be shitting it right now, was whispered in my ear. So I got up and thought, screw him, let's go for this.
Yeah.
So I very much believe in belly breathing. We were chatting about that earlier. So when I get angsty, I do try and slow down and get in my head. Apparently, if you wiggle your toes, it helps you reset.
Like
one of my friends
you
told
sort
me.
Of thing.
Yeah. And because it triggers something in your brain to kind of go, oh, I'm wiggling my toes.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So you're doing it now, aren't you?
I am.
Everyone is there going, yes, I am wiggling my toes.
It's that, like, it brings you back into
your body in a way.
Into your body and into the space that you're in. Like, oh yeah, I'm here, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's something very much that I do if I have to talk. I'm like, oh, this is real. Okay. You know, I'm quite a vivid dreamer. I would like to say it's part of the meds. I think it's just part of my crazy imagination. And I've been known to... I had this whole vendetta against my dad. I rang him recently. I went...
In dreams? Or...
Well, it turns out it was from a dream. And I was like, Dad, I can't believe that when I was a child, we went to this place and there was this long road that went... And it was just above the sea. And when we were driving back from this, like, across this road, water was coming up onto the road and you kept going. I said, and now one of my biggest fears is being in like a boat and being under the waterline, or being along a seafront and the water hitting against windows. And Dad just went, that never happened. I went, it did. He was like, Laura, that never happened. He said, I've screwed you up on many levels, but this is not one of them. And I was like, this happened. Complete dream. Had a dream last night. I killed my best friend's hamster. Had to text her this morning, check I hadn't killed their family hamster.
Oh my God.
She was like, no, she's still alive. I'm not naming the hamster because the hamster has a stripper name because their son is just adorable. And just like, glitterati.
So the meds make... dreams more they're known to make dreams more vivid, the particular
right, which I don't mind. I quite like, because I don't know, there's something about, I don't sleep overly well, but I've never have
deep sleep wise.
So it's quite nice that whenever I wake up and there's been like an adventure, I'm like, hooray.
But I suppose if you look at it that way, but then if you're having, do you ever have nightmares or bad dreams, and is that reflective of your mood at that particular time?
Henry's got quite good in waking me up, because apparently I talk in my sleep.
Oh, right. Anything coherent?
Well, I did shout. Mum and Dad, stop listening. Apparently I shouted, fuck you, Henry, fuck you, really loudly a couple of nights ago. And he woke me up and he was like, what did I do? But I have no idea what he did in it, but it was really clear, apparently.
Evidently they stay with you. There's that idea that the dreams are like your subconscious processing your reality, isn't it?
It's like, was it Phoebe in Friends was angry at Ross because he did something, but it was in a dream? And it's like,
Friends is so good.
It's that thing of like, oh, actually.
Because it feels real at the time, particularly if you're aware of them. But I know I've gone back. I wanted to try and understand what it's like public speaking wise. It's something that I've said I've always struggled with, but perhaps, you know, if I wanted to try and tap in to see if there was anything in particular that you had done to prep yourself, sort of thing. But,
do you hate me because the answer's no?
Yeah.
Years ago, I would have been way more angsty about it. Like when I worked in corporate, I worried about what people thought. And I hit a point where when I left corporate, I finally got to like go as crazy as I wanted to with my hair, got to wear what I wanted. I know today, like I look like I might as well just worn a onesie and like
Got to be comfortable on the podcast.
Joggers and a hoodie. I'm like, don't feel bad. But it was nice. It's nice to be me.
Yeah.
So I've kind of, my caring levels of what people think has dramatically dropped since I feel like I have to.
Yeah.
So if people don't like me, it's like, well, that's fine. Others do.
You can't be to everyone's taste, or that you can't please everyone, sort of things.
Exactly.
That classic old.
Yeah, that's
saying.
it now. So I think, publicly speaking, Mum and Dad, don't listen to this. I kind of give zero fucks in what people think.
Yeah, just going to do. And I suppose with a topic like mental health, it's such a captivating, hot topic that you're going to have people really give you the space. It's not like doing stand-up where instantly people are like, right, make me laugh. And you really got to...
People's barriers are down a bit more.
Yes, they want you to do well. They want to be informed or entertained or, both.
Sometimes it's funny because I chuck humour in and they don't know whether they're allowed to laugh.
I was going to ask actually about this, is you, upon meeting you, this is the first time I met you.
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
And I get the sense that you obviously have a sense of it, like a lively sense of humour, and that you use comedy in a way to deliver serious topics as well, and talk about them, discuss them, and
because if I sat there and was like, death, suicide, your brain is screwed. It's like, oh crap, like this is hardcore. But
I think there's a time and place for, and especially I suppose it's a kind of art form if you are able to almost
you've got to
delve
lighten
in
the
and
mood.
out. Yeah, exactly.
Because realistically, some of the things that happened are funny.
Yeah. In hindsight, they are.
Yeah, in hindsight. Some of them are really stupid.
Yeah.
Like some of them are just bizarre. Like if you open a fridge, you're not infecting all the food.
Yeah.
But back then,
is this
this was by perinatal, so during, especially with Poppy, and in my brain it was logic. Like hindsight, that's ridiculous, and it's actually quite funny. At the time, it wasn't, but so many little weird things that you do, or like I had to fold a towel a certain way.
Yeah,
like it's ridiculous, but it's also quite funny in hindsight. And if you want to tell people your story, because one of the things at Discombob we do is we only use real people's stories on our website, because you can get any sort of stat or anything from Google and you can argue it, but no one can argue your actual experience.
Of course,
and you can go for it if you want, but it's what happened to me, and that's fact.
That's yours to own. You own that.
So if we're putting people's stories out and people feel the need to question them, it's like, go for it. But that's Becky's story, that's Sarah's story, that's Dave's story, that's go for it. But
how can you possibly begin to pick apart someone's reality and experience? Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to lighten it, because otherwise it becomes all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
The facts are that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Of course, yeah.
We're obviously at the moment in a society that has been highlighted with Caroline Flack taking her own life, and everyone's like, why? She had so much to live for. And it's like, yeah, she did. She was gorgeous, she was talented, she was funny. Yeah. She's massively suffered with depression for 20 years. The media would rip her apart. There was a magazine article when she was dating Harry Styles that called her a paedophile. And in a magazine as well for kids that said, like, she's so old. Look at her with her crow's feet. Like, she's younger than me. Oh no, she's not. She was 40. That makes me feel not that 40 is okay to, but
Yeah.
she was so talented, and it turned into a bit of a witch hunt, and she had mental health issues anyway. And it is horrendous. And seeing people like, so obviously with what I do, it got quite deep dive, and I did a whole thing about how it's okay to not be okay with it.
Yeah.
Like I found it quite overwhelming after a couple of days, and I watched Danny Cipriani's video, and
it's very powerful.
it was very powerful because he's what people call a man, isn't it? Rugby player.
Yeah.
It's the way he went, I'm gifted in sport and I'm not that ugly. And my husband just went, I hate you. And I was like, listen, it's a serious thing. But, he's suffering with mental health issues and has been for 12 or so years. And I think one of the things that I kind of want to say is this happens every single day. Yes, it's someone in the public eye, but there are people that are beautiful, that are talented, that are taking their lives every single day. And an uproar from it is great. And, the things that we're seeing with like the Sun's profits are going down, apparently.
I haven't seen that.
And, there's an actress called Stephanie, whose surname I've completely forgotten, who also has been hounded by the press, is in the process of going to Parliament to try and pass Caroline's Law to stop the media passing it, because she said that she actually had a phone call from the press when she was really depressed, and they said, we're going to print this. And she was like, but it's not true. And they said, we don't care, we're going to print it anyway. And her dad found her before she managed to follow through with taking her own life.
Yeah.
So these uproars are good because we're changing stuff.
Yeah.
But in 4 months' time, it will have stopped.
Yeah.
And in 4 months' time, we will have probably lost about 20 more people to suicide. Just not high celebrities.
Yeah. It just so happens to be that this is so in the spotlight and high profile. And I think people almost realised that, I'm not saying everyone, but as a whole, as a collective, that we are the ones that are fueling this sort of
How many times
industry.
have you clicked on something on social media because you're like, what does that headline mean? And suddenly you are deep into clickbait hatred.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're like, wow. Like one of the things I found interesting was something got published. Somebody had circled every person that had commented something horrible and negative, that had put the be kind filter on their Facebook profile picture.
Right. Yeah.
And the amount of people, it was an aggression against a Ant McPartlin's ex-wife. And they were like, oh my God, look what she looks like now. Like really personal things, which are the exact sort of things that they're saying, well, you shouldn't do, be kind, can't believe the press would do this. And they've all got these be kind filters on their photos. And this person just circled. And there was like 5 or 6 screenshots of like all these people. And it's like, fair enough, talk the talk, but also walk the walk. Yeah. Like
my thoughts then were, shit, you've just carried on the shame there, because with the highlighting, then it causes someone then to go to that person and say, right, what skeletons have you got in your closet? And then someone else is digging it, and it's just like
it's a vicious circle.
It's just an ongoing thing. I think the media for a long time, like since the whole Diana thing.
Oh God, yeah.
And this was 20 odd years ago, and there's been numerous examples in recent years and in the past of people's mental health being directly linked to being hounded by media and slashed in the press, like, and it's almost like once there's a taste for blood for that particular person,
there's a weakness.
Yeah, it's just they go after that person relentlessly, almost as if, I think
it's a free for all, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's like I read a book recently he's actually from Cardiff, but he's like a big time writer now.
Oh my God. John Ronson.
Yeah.
So you've been publicly shamed?
Yes.
Yeah. He's my favourite author. I met him when he talked in Cardiff.
No, amazing.
I just stood there and both awkwardly smiled because he's quite a socially awkward. And I was just like, I love you. I've got some stories about him. I'll tell you.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah. So his book is, I'm reading it now, actually.
It's amazing.
It is. And it goes through basically from, it covers examples where there's been a public shaming, whether it's primarily online, isn't it? As in social media and whatnot. But it covers both sides of the story. And from what I'm gathering at the stage, I'm probably about 3/4 of the way through, it's like both of the people, the shamer and the shamee, are both being negatively affected by this process of witch hunting and Twitter pylons and all of these different things. And where, like, John Ronson himself even holds himself accountable. And at the start of the book, he says, I was often involved in these Twitter witch hunts and pylons where somebody has said something, 10 years ago that is now deemed to be racist, homophobic, bad taste, whatever. And then they're pulled up for that and everyone goes after them.
Yeah.
Without any sort of consideration towards, I don't know, like what it means for that person. And that, doesn't he say that there should be something in place that if someone is genuinely sorry and realizes they've made a mistake and they want to atone, as in want to make amends, then we as a society should be able to offer them that.
Yeah, we should be able to respect the fact that people change. I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago, and nor would I want to be.
Yeah.
Like, it's a completely different person. And his books are amazing. I love him so much. That book is it should be mandatory for people to read it. Especially with social media. My goddaughter's 18, and I cannot imagine growing up with social media like she's got and like my kids are going to have, because Facebook didn't come in until I got my Facebook account 3 weeks before I got married.
Yeah.
And, for the time it was like, it's just a way for me to see all my wedding photos.
Of course, yeah.
And now it's turned into a platform, and, I see stuff written on like my goddaughter and my baby cousin's social media that people write comments, and I have to stop myself because I want to go and rip an 18-year-old's head off.
Yeah.
How dare you speak to her like that? How dare you speak to him like that? And it's inappropriate for me to go beat up an 18-year-old. I'm a 36-year-old woman. But the constant, because at least, this sounds awful, but at least when bullying happened at school, you got to go home.
Yeah. Back to a safe place.
Yeah. And you now can't because kids have their phones, they have their computers, they've got their tablets, and it can continue all through the night, all through the weekend. There's no escape.
Yeah.
And I cannot... That's one of the big things that scares me as a parent, as a auntie. Like, I just want to steal all the kids and like lock them up. Well, that's wrong. But just to protect them, because it's continuous. Because what you would have probably been
with
18 just when social media kind of started.
I think I want to say I feel like my friends had just got it in uni, so I want to say 2005 maybe they had Facebook. So yeah, exactly. And I don't think I had it until like maybe 2006 I had Facebook.
Started off with like, that's not going to be cool, isn't it? It's like,
exactly.
I'm not dealing with that.
It was all for students to network in,
it was
in
just
universities.
It was just universities. My sister-in-law had it. My friend Lisa had it when we were at uni. She went to a different university. She was like, I've got this thing called Facebook. I was like, oh, cool. She's like, it was good, but that's when the stalking starts.
Yeah.
Because, there was a cute boy in her class, so, oh God, I'm totally incriminating her. So she wanted to see, like, who he was. And you can do that. And it starts...
Everyone's done that sort of thing. Everyone. Like,
everyone's checked on an ex. Everyone's...
I suppose that is the difficulty as well when you have that sense of... access to people in a way, access to a version of them.
That's you've just summed it up perfectly. A version. I was saying when we met, so I'm in joggers, a hoodie, my hair's pulled up in a bun, and I've got a tissue attached to my nose periodically. And I was like, so this is not the version that you have ever seen of me. Like, you know, you make sure that the photos that you want go out now, don't you? There's editing tools. It's not real.
It's hard to sometimes, and I've been greatly affected by this sort of stuff in the past, and still to a degree now. I had a meltdown Christmas time. I was like, I'm deleting my Instagram as it was, and I did, but now I'm back on it and as private, and I just feel like it has like kind of more that I have more control over just having people I know or people I've at least met back and forth into my life,
rather than random people.
Yeah, and but I suppose it is that sense that it's not the full story, and I think it's such a new thing, and I've spoken to people, and this is actually one of the topics that comes up all the time.
See, we were wondering if I'd go through the tick sheet.
Yeah, well, like it just, this is what I'm saying, is just, it's such a burning topic of the moment. We haven't actually, so this is the first episode since the media attention on suicide, which I definitely wanted to chat about. Yeah. But with the social media stuff, it is like there's no working practice, or there's no guidelines that we've really been able to establish because it's such a new technology.
Yeah, and it's changing so much. Like I don't understand. Oh God, this is where I'm going to age myself. I don't understand Snapchat.
Yeah, not me.
My goddaughter tried to explain it to me, and I was like, Han, I think we just need to come down to the realization that it's not happening.
Yeah.
And TikTok, what the heck?
Yeah, so I have no idea.
But I'm like, what the hell are these? But my son's like, I want a TikTok account. I'm like, you're 10.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Yeah. Like, move on. He's like, I want a phone. You're 10.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But you're going to want to know where I am. I'm like, no, not really.
You can get this, apparently you can get, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm like, was this a spoof advert? But it was like a kind of watch.
It's not. There are such a thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. You're not.
Yeah, I was like, have I just been... There's like a spoof video. It's like, keep track of your kids wherever they are. But it's like a...
I really think we should just be able to put implantation chips in the back of their neck until they're 16 and then like pop them out or deactivate them.
Yeah. Oh, did you see that Black
Mirror?
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, that's a good idea till 16. But no, they're just so in it. And like we've banned Jack from YouTube because he starts off with, he just wants to watch football videos. That's all he wants to watch. But people don't just put football videos up under football videos. Yeah. And no matter how sometimes grown up I think he is, he's 10. Like, at 10, I was still eating worms. You know, like they're so blinking grown up already. I want them to try and keep some kiddiness.
Yeah, I think that's important as well. I can remember being that age and people didn't know what the fuck the internet was, and we just had completely unlimited free reign over...
What did you mean?
Well, in school. I can remember being in school, and I'm not going to publicise the name of the website, but there was a website with like horrific stuff on there that was like quite widely known when I was a kid, that all the kids used to... It was horrific stuff. Like... Yeah. And we were all as kids like being exposed to this, like this is in front of us, and you know, people didn't understand that what happened to the internet just exploded.
See, I thought you were going to talk about the BBC computer. That you're probably too young for that.
What's that?
When I was in primary school, the big BBC computer used to get trucked in on, and it was like attached to an old-fashioned telly, and it was huge, and then we had one in the entire school. And it used to be like you press a button and it would go beep, beep, and you'd have to type in the letters like coding to do anything. And it was a black screen with green writing. And that was our computer. God, I sound old. No wonder Jack thinks I was born in World War II.
You were only 4 years older than me.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. Jack actually the other day was doing something on the Great Fire of London, and his godfather lives in London. And he said to me, can I call Godpapa Andy to ask him about what happened? And I was like, Andy's 3 years younger than me.
Yeah.
He was like, well, do you want to tell me what happened? I was like, Jack, that was like
Yeah.
really long time ago because I can't remember when it happened. And
Yeah.
Something 66. London
1066?
Yeah. London burned like something six. Another in a fix in 1666.
1600s. And yeah.
You gotta remember
1066
songs.
Battle of Hastings.
Yeah. I love the fact though, I was like, yeah.
66 something.
There's just social medias it's just they're getting into it too young. And we sound like our parents, but
I know.
They're getting into it too young. And like we do wet weather adventures.
Yeah.
So my husband he likes to call it rainy day adventure. And when it's absolutely belting it down, and if I've got like a little bit of work to do, because he grew up on a farm, so he's like, let's go guys, and they go out in full wet weather gear and go out and like climb trees and stuff in the rain, so there's like no one about. And that's the stuff we're trying to encourage with them because they're growing up so quickly. When we go to the farm, my in-laws, the internet's really bad. Like you can't stream. So I literally log on, do my work, log off, and Jack starts off with like it's fine, and then you can see him starting to twitch. Day 3, he's struggling, but by day 6 or 5, he's gone full circle.
Yeah.
So they are outside constantly. We call it free range parenting because. Yeah. We've only lost them once. And they were sat, bless it was when Poppy was really little, and she was sat in the hay bale in the cow shed reading to the cows. And we were like, oh, at least you didn't get in the bullpen. That would have been a different story.
Oh, God.
It is safe. It's fine. She couldn't climb the fence. But it's that whole just taking them there to try and reset them.
Yeah.
We go to Green Man every year. We do Settlers Week
amazing.
as well. Poppy started going when she was 8 months old.
You've been every year?
Yeah, since she was born. She's very cocky with it. She's like, oh, I am 6 and I've been here 6 times. And, you can see Jack's now complaining a little bit that he has to go to Green Man. But
really?
One day he'll realise how cool it is.
Yeah.
He'll be like,
awesome. Yeah.
But that's a whole week without tech because we take a Nokia, like an old Nokia, so that holds battery for the whole time we're there. And if, something happens, we've got some sort of contact. But I have a complete week off work, digital, completely gone. Hen does. We don't take our normal phones. We take a camera rather than like our phone.
That's cool.
And it really does reset you. We play card games in the tent.
Yeah.
Like we love camping as a family, but it's that whole like complete reset.
Do you think I suppose that things like that are becoming way more important the more fast-paced everything else gets. But I suppose because people are so, and I'm putting myself in this again, like distracted and swept away, it seems almost unnatural to do that, to disconnect.
It takes a good day where you're not like twitching. Realised podcast, no one can see me moving my shoulders. But I know that, especially because I'm self-employed, so if I don't work, I don't get paid.
Yeah.
There's that first day of, why didn't I just bring my phone and I could have replied to emails?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, you need this. And it's amazing how like by day 2 or 3, you just kind of slip into it.
Yeah.
By day 3, you're going to drag queen bedtime stories, which is always amazing.
In Green Man?
In Green Man.
Oh, wow.
In Settlers Week. So it's the week before.
Oh, right, okay.
And yeah, they have drag queen bedtime stories. And my daughter, the first year, was like, I'm very confused. Now she watches RuPaul, but when I've already watched it, we are language cautious.
Yeah.
Though she's been to Green Man, she knows there's a Green Man smell, which you can.
Oh, right, of course. Sorry. How naive of me.
I know, you're Poppy. Which are in certain parts. And she's like, ooh. And if we are walking somewhere and she'll be like, Mummy, it smells like Green Man. She's a very practical child. So she's like, she loves it. Jack loves just being outside and playing football. But when you've got the lure of Xbox and tablet and stuff. And so every kid as well now in Wales gets, I don't know if it's in England, they get a hub account, which is basically Microsoft Office.
Oh, right, okay.
Up until they're 18.
Oh, didn't know that.
So he goes home and he'll be like, oh, I'm just going to do a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll go off and make a PowerPoint presentation when you're like, dude, you need to get out more.
Yeah.
But it's the sort, in his head, he's being creative, and he is being creative, but I'd prefer him to be creative away from a screen.
Yeah, electronics.
Yeah, so it's that. Just lure them away, reset them, remind them that they're kids. Like, God, I remember just riding my bike up and down the street until I was like 11, 12, come in when the lights were going down. Oh, reminiscing about when we were young.
I suppose it's one of those things of like, we were around, our generation was the last that would have not been constantly connected via technology. Yeah. So it was one of those things that when you're out for the day, in the summer holidays, out on your bike, you're gone until, no one can contact you kind of thing. Unless you're like to your parents, I'm going here. It's kind of... Here
is blah blah's phone number. And I had a BT phone card so that if if something happened, I could find a phone box and I didn't need to have coins, and I could type in a code phone boxes were our mobile phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you would just trust that your friend was going to meet you at 12 o'clock in town at the bandstand because that's what you had arranged.
Yeah.
And you would stand there and you would wait. And sometimes wait. Were we more trusting? Were we more naive?
I suppose there's more access. There's more misinformation now. And there's more of a highlight on bad stuff that happens wherever in the world. So it's
the news is always negative.
That happened here. Look at this. That happened here. And you regardless of whether you are directly affected by whatever it is, it's in there somewhere. Yeah. Even to some small degree, you take that on to some degree.
I unfriended someone that I went to school with yesterday on Facebook because she was sharing something about the coronavirus. It was... But she didn't look back to what she was sharing. It was horrendous. It was people being dragged out on the streets in China and all this sort of stuff in hazmat suits. And when you click to the person that posted it, it was a extremist in the States who was pro KKK, all this sort of stuff, very public. And I said, all I wrote was very calm, and I just wrote, just check what you're sharing.
Yeah,
and she just went, oh, I shared this from a friend. And I said, are you friends with the original poster? And she went, no. I said, well, look at that person, because her son's very flamboyant. And everything in me wanted to write, this is the sort of person that would judge you for letting your son dress up in dresses. This is the sort of person that would be very mean to you. And she was like, well, this is true. This is what's happening. I'm just sharing information. I said, no, you're sharing extremism and fear.
Yeah.
Because whenever there's any virus,
there always is.
There's, people share these videos and they're extreme. Some of them are from TV shows and people don't realize. And I couldn't deal with, I was like, I'm not a child anymore. I'm not putting that in my news feed. So there was a mass cull last night. So if you made it, congratulations. If you didn't, you probably deserved it. Because I just suddenly realized that some people don't think about what they share.
No.
They just go, oh my God, look at this. And
reactive.
Yeah. You've got to check the source. Yeah. We just talked about Caroline Flack.
Yeah.
That everyone assumed that the blood on the bed was her boyfriend's and she had beaten the bejeez out of him. But it was,
made you believe that.
It was her blood. She cut her wrist. It was her blood. And the media led you to believe that it was his, and that's how it was led, and that's what got shared, and that's what got seen, and that's what got traction, and that started the negative, which ended in her taking her own life and her feeling like there's no way out.
Yeah.
Suicide is a long-term solution for a short-term problem.
Yeah, that's a really powerful sentence, actually. I've never heard that before. If somebody is in that darker spot, what's the first kind of step or sentence or conversation or something that what do they do from there, kind of thing?
We've all got that one friend. Mine's called Kirsty. Hi. Kirsty and I never tend to say nice things to each other. We've known each other for many years. We'll text them. If we say them, it's kind of, we've got quite a boy relationship, we think.
Yeah, okay.
But she called me her best friend on New Year's Eve to other people. And I just went, you call me your best friend. You call me. Yeah, sorry, totally diverted. If I'm struggling, I just send her a message and all it says is, not great. And she'll be like, right, let's go to... So we've both got kids that are the same age. So it's like, right, after kids are in bed, let's just go to... We live right by a pub. So let's go to the pub and just sit down and chat. It's having that one person to talk to, and be that a doctor, because you don't want to talk to any friends, especially as... I know you're a dude.
Yeah.
You know, just to put that out there. With guys, it can be quite hard to talk to mates.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's changing over the generations. But I think our generation as well is probably one of the last where it's quite hard to talk to.
Yeah.
It's still quite... No one can see that I'm doing this shoulder like head thing, can they?
Cagey kind of.
Like, men.
Yeah.
So even if it's a doctor, it's find someone you trust, but it's not weakness to reach out. It's actually the strongest thing you can do, because think how hard it is to do it. That kind of sums up. If it's hard to do something, that means you're a champion doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's certainly not weakness. We do a lot of work with Newport County Football Club, which is actually how I met your friend Luke.
Ah, cool.
And one of the things what we talk about with them is that and the players, the reason why it's so important for me to do work with them is because these guys are people's idols. And when we work with certain people that are deemed men, for me, they sometimes don't realize how much power they have. If they're saying, like Tyson Fury recently, and Frank Bruno, they're saying, speak out, this is how I felt. They're men who people think are so strong and got it all.
Yeah.
And they're saying the hardest thing to do is speak out. But once you do, that is the bravest thing. It is not weak asking for help.
Yeah.
Having people like that say it really helps, rather than a 5-foot girl going, it's really brave to speak out.
No, I think people are going to hear... I had this in a conversation recently where different people are going to respond to different voices. Like, there's going to be someone hearing Tyson Fury say it, maybe shut off to it. But hearing you say it, maybe like, yeah, actually, I relate more to this person. It's just like human nature kind of thing. True. However the message is delivered. But I think the more people from all over the place...
Yes, you need to see that it affects everyone.
Yeah.
Be it...
Doesn't discriminate.
Tyson Fury, who earned £9 million purse for his fight and then gave it away to charity, to me, to you, just us saying the first step is always you've got to want help. It's fine being forced to go get help, but it's like if you force a drug addict to go get help, they're going to relapse. You've got to want, you've got to be there, you've got to want to get better to a point. I always feel.
Yeah.
Otherwise you will take, it is a recovery, you know, it's an illness. It's in the same way if you have an illness and you have to take a tablet, say diabetes, if you don't want to get better, you don't take your insulin, you're going to get ill again. It's the same sort of way. You've got to want to get better. So that first step is in yourself, but then it is reaching out and asking for help, be it from a friend or a medical professional. And then that friend will help you go to the medical professionals that you need to speak to. There is such a stigma on meds, there's such a stigma on counselling. No matter what sort of treatment plan you do, somebody's going to have an opinion on it.
Yes, absolutely.
And my advice is ignore them, because what works for you doesn't necessarily work for them. You could sit people in a room that have near as damn it the same experiences, and we will all be on different medication. Some people won't be on medication. I've got friends that have weaned themselves off. I sat with my doctor, actually. My doctor's sons go to the same school as mine, and we were chatting the other day, and he was like, this is the best I've ever seen you. So why change something that works? I don't want to go back to being how I was. I can't produce a chemical. I take a tablet that helps me produce the chemical. Everyone, though, will have an opinion. Some people don't understand that mental health and mental illness are different. And you will get told, go for a walk in the woods, go for a swim, do more activity. And all these things are really good for your mental health, but they will not necessarily help your mental illness.
Yes.
So, seek the truth. Never Google.
Oh, I'm with you on that. Do not Google.
How many times have you been dying in the last 6 months because you Googled?
Oh, so many times. I have health anxiety, and in the past, the amount of I learned the hard way. Even recently, and I'm talking very recently, have I made that mistake? No, not this morning.
But I had lymphoma cancer when I haven't had it, but that's what Google told me I had.
Yeah.
I didn't. I had a cyst.
Yeah.
It was a spot.
Oh, really?
And I was like, oh my God, I've got a lymph node swollen.
Yeah.
It was a zit, guys. It was a zit.
It's funny. Well, it's not funny, but I mean, the connection between, and I've learned this through the years, but the connection between the brain and the body in terms of you send those thoughts out and you have but it's hard to stop them.
You will make yourself symptomatic.
Yes, absolutely. If you focus on one particular, it shows to me, it shows the power of the mind and thinking that I basically induced IBS in myself a few years ago, full blown, really bad IBS, because I was convinced that I thought I had cancer. I've written about this before, and in the same way as you, I put it quite comedically, my whole story, because looking back, it is funny. But it wasn't funny at the time.
At the time you thought you had cancer.
But yeah, I really induced intense cramps where I was keeled over, and it was a roller coaster of a ride. But yeah, I learned the hard way. Do not Google. And I still, even recently, I find that there are times where I'm more vulnerable and less vulnerable to watching things or like being triggered by certain things. But it's that's a take-home message.
I deleted the BBC News app off my phone.
That's a good idea too.
Because if I can't sleep, I'd used to read the news. Look, stay alert and know what's going on in the world, but make sure you look at varied resources.
Yeah, and
remember that you do surround yourself with people with the same ideas, and just make sure that you try and learn all perspectives.
That's really, really powerful as well, because I think a lot of times people get trapped in echo chambers, particularly digitally, because the algorithm shows you more stuff that you're going to want to see. So then eventually, I'm scared of that myself. I like to know.
That's why we were shocked when everything went like Brexit.
Yeah, exactly.
The election, the US election, and that's why people were shocked, because you don't surround yourself with those people. Like, I've got a cousin in America who has different political views, and so obviously, like every person loved the Obamas. Yeah. He didn't. And instead of going, well, you're wrong, we had many a discussion about why, and both respected each other's opinions. Yeah. And actually, the thing that we need to remember, even over here, is we only get shown part of the story. Yeah. We get shown what the press want to pick up. So, there was negative stuff going on at times with Mr. Obama, but we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
So we just saw the funny guy, the guy that would randomly start singing, the guy that did
really
like a mic
affable,
job.
outspoken.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Who absolutely loved his running partner and like who loved his wife.
So charismatic, a speaker.
And you get sucked in.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when he's talking about other stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but that's a good thing. A health service. We were talking about like Obamacare. And he was saying how it had affected ex-military's insurance and but sort of stuff that we don't know about.
Yeah, we don't know, yeah. We just see the good.
Yeah, and then it causes arguments because other people, sometimes he'll comment on something if I share it and he'll be like, "Law, half the story," and somebody will be like, "Oh, you stupid American," and I'm like, "That's my cousin." Like,
yeah, I think that's really important to know. Is I have friends with completely different political views to me, but I'm able to have. I like to think I'm able to have like a level-headed, rational conversation with them, and I respect their views and they respect mine, and it doesn't impinge on our ability to be friends. And
that's what it should be, because sadly otherwise we end up with the Nazi party.
Yeah
I'm listening to a podcast on Hitler, so that's why that was the first thing. So yeah, ending on the Nazis.
That was the other touch, but no, I wasn't.
Damn it.
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out
of
your
this is lush.
day to chat with me.
Going out for a drink.
And I
want to meet your wife.
She's lovely.
Oh, yeah. He didn't even cross his fingers or anything.
So yeah, thank you so much. And I don't know if you want to share any like socials or websites or anything like that.
So we are www.mydiscombobulatedbrain.com, and we are Discombobbrain on Instagram and Twitter. And any events that we've got coming up are all over the social media. So feel free to get in touch.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
No, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So that was my chat with my Discombobulated Brain's Laura Jane Derney. And it seems like ages ago that we were sat in the bank vault at Little Man having a lovely chinwag over a couple of peppermint teas. Way less strange times then. And it was weird actually for me to listen back and hear us mention coronavirus prior to it really impacting the UK at all. And obviously the subsequent lockdown that followed. I think that's part of what I love about recording conversations, is that it perfectly captures a specific moment in time. And after each conversation, I like to reflect and have a little journal about what the guest and I chatted about. I then pick out some of the key things that stuck with me, as well as things I might have learned, in the hope that sharing them may help you. So here's some takeaways and what I learned. Number 1, teaching kids about mental health. I think this was really a standout one for me. And Laura says that she sat her son down to explain to him that she was sad due to mental illness she was suffering with, rather than it being for any specific reason. And I think sometimes a child's natural reaction is for them to blame themselves potentially. But after having it explained to him in terms that he could understand, he understood that his mum was ill and that it wasn't anything to do with him. And off the back of this, I think we sometimes give kids less credit than they actually deserve in terms of being able to perceive the emotions and feelings of those close to them. And as Laura says, one of her adages for parenting that her and her husband adopt is that they're little, not stupid. Number 2, equipping children with the tools to feel and express their emotions. Again, leading on from the previous, this was another cool standout for me. I love that Laura has instilled into her children the importance of really feeling their feelings and expressing their emotions. And if her son is feeling angry, they bomb it up to a nearby mountain to go and shout and scream at the top of their lungs. And if they're feeling frustrated, they talk it out and then go in the garage and beat the shit out of a punch bag to expel all of that pent up energy. And if a son's sad, he's encouraged to cry, to get it out of the system and to stop it festering. I think I need to learn from this myself, that I need to really feel my feelings properly and get them out of my body to process them, as well as being useful advice when I'm a parent myself. And the last one, number 3, disconnect. if you can hear the rain, it is belting down. Laura and her family take a complete tech break at Green Festival once every year for a week. While the first few days can be a bit tough, as they roll on, Laura says that she finds she doesn't miss checking her emails and being constantly contactable. It's just the habit, and sometimes the addictive nature of our devices getting the better of us, because we get used to checking them. It becomes habitual. And the truth is, we can get by perfectly fine without them, even though there's kind of seems to be a withdrawal period. And it sounds like to me that this acts as a bit of a reset button for Laura and her family. And by doing this, they can really focus on enjoying the festival first and foremost, but also bonding and enjoying their time together as a family without constant distractions. And it might also allow her to be more mindful when she returns to the real world outside of Green Man. And for me, I've always seemed to have taken breaks at times of heightened anxiety or crisis. But I think it would be useful for me to do that even when I'm not at that desperation stage, as a preemptive measure before the meltdown. So I think I'm going to try and incorporate that at some point. Right then, that is this episode done and dusted. Until next Monday, focus on only one thing at a time, one day at a time, and take it easy. Much love. See ya.